So welcome to our webinar called Awakening the Inner Gold Mine. And perhaps you weren't aware that you do have a gold mine within you. I'm going to make it very, very clear as we go through this session exactly what it is. And the fact that you're listening to this means that something within you has been alerted to the fact that there is a phenomenal opportunity which you are missing in your life. Now, in the Bible it says, many are called, but few are chosen. And what does that mysterious saying mean? So let's look and see for ourselves, because this is the most valuable information of all. This is where you lead to. Perhaps you've been studying personal development, self-development for a while, years even. You might even be teaching it. And then you realize there's something missing, something extra that you need to know. Well, this is it. This is what we're going to give you here this evening. And what is that mysterious saying? Many are called, but few are chosen. Inside you, there is an animating force, an energy that keeps you alive and allows you to energize your body in the same way that an electrical current can drive a car in today's electric car worlds. And you have a similar current, let's call it, within you that animates every part of your being. And when that animating force goes, your life is over. So it's a thing that keeps you alive, therefore very, very important indeed. But very few people ever experience this current in any way whatsoever. At best, they feel their muscles as they move around, walking, swimming, whatever. And what it is that activates the muscles beyond the physical level and allows you to move is a mystery, because invisible, as you'll see. You have no daily conscious relationship with it, even though, as you'll see in this session, it is the most important thing of all for you. So this power or animating force is in fact the essence of your own being. There's nothing prior to it. It is the beginning point of who and what you are. And it operates completely independently of every other part of yourself. And it doesn't even require you to be in relationship with it, even though it is the source of your aliveness. And it is also the expression of the core of your being and the highest part of your nature. Now, when it says in the Bible there, many are called, it is this animating force that is calling out to you. But very few respond or heed the call, and so they cannot be chosen for the highest experience of all. Many are called, but few are chosen. So something comes up within you during your life. You feel perhaps something's missing, there's something extra, there must be more than this to life. These kinds of thoughts and questions come in, and they're absolutely correct. There is something much, much more to life, but it's not outside yourself. It's within you. So the first step is to, from now on, consider that you are far more than you ever imagined yourself to be. Now, why is that? Because this animating force, this electricity of life, is the universal intelligence itself. And the little pulse of it, you get a little tiny bit of it that passes through you, is connected to the rest of the universe in the same way that the electricity that powers a toaster is connected to the giant generators in the great dams up in the mountains where the electricity is made. And in that example, right from the dams, there's one gigantic unbroken electrical current that is stepped down through transformers till it can get to the toaster and make your toast for you. But there's no break between the dams and the toaster. And this is the same with you and the life force, the animating force itself. When you get into altered states of consciousness, which come as a result of proper meditative practices and the filling of your mind with personal growth knowledge, you can start to see this kind of thing. I remember once I was in the jungles overseas, and we had this extraordinary experiences going on through these practices that we were doing, and it was possible to actually see the life force, this invisible animating force, going through the roots of the trees, the leaves, the flowers that were around. The whole thing was alive. You got a sense that there was literally an alive life force pulsing and throbbing and giving life to everything around us. So in the same way that the life force which emanates you is part of the universal animating force. It keeps everything that you are experiencing right now, which means the whole universe actually, alive and functioning. And just like between the toaster and the dam, there isn't a break in the electrical current, between you and everything else, there is no break. Even though you can't experience it, there is no break. You can, of course, get back to experiencing it, and when you do, then and only then do you have full power over your life. But most people are completely unaware of this animating force. So what are you, we might ask? If you're connected to this intelligence of life in this way, what secret powers and potentials do you have that you have no idea exist? Let's listen to what Shakespeare had to say about human beings. When he says man, he means man and woman in this example. What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. And the paragon is a person or a thing viewed as a model of excellence, the crown of creation. So why would he have said that? Very brilliant man, quite obviously. His words came to him, to his personal mind, from an extraordinary resource within himself. He obviously experienced being in a higher state of consciousness to write such exquisite poetry and prose. And what was the only difference to him and most other writers? Quite clearly, he was in touch far more with the animating force. You couldn't write what he wrote unless you were experiencing what he was experiencing, which is the higher state working through him, through his personal mind, and coming out with this brilliance, this work of genius that's lasted for 500 years and still very, very popular. So this is you too. You are totally connected to the animating force, to this highest intelligence of life, and in the same way as the dam and the toaster, you are connected to the whole universe, and therefore you have access to unknown levels of higher intelligence. The problem is, no one has told you this, or reminded you of it on a daily basis, nor has educated you formally about this reality. It's just not in the education system. So you have to do this for yourself. And it's essential that you inform yourself as much as possible about the subject, which is, of course, proper personal development. Very few people in the personal development field realize that the animating force is the end game, where they're going to finish up, because once you've merged with that, there is nothing else to develop. You are it. You are the lot. You are the universe. So your first step is to accept the possibility that a man or a woman is a living being with undreamed of faculties. Just consider that for a moment. Here you are, listening to these words, and probably unbeknown to you, you have 99% of your organism unused. You mosey through life like we all do, go to work, come home, make the dinner and cooking and whatever else it is. So you must accept that you could possibly, if you prefer that, be a being with undreamed of faculties. And if you consider that there is some standard level of consciousness which all beings fit into, then you will be restricted to an extremely limited view of life, and especially your own potentials. So it is your mindset, your personal mind, that restricts you from experiencing this electricity, this animating force of life itself. You are much, much more than what you think you are. So you have to start considering your animating force. How does it keep you alive? What is it made of? Who or what is motivating it to take actions? These are just a few of the questions you can ask. How is it possible that I have this electricity, so to speak, moving through me, connected to everything else, yet I have no awareness of it? And yet quite clearly, something is keeping me alive, something in there, and something goes, because people don't live forever at this point. Maybe when the technology comes good enough, they'll work that out. But start to turn this over and over in your mind. Start to think about it. What is this force within myself, the closest thing to the core of my being, that keeps me functioning and growing? And as you turn it over and over in your mind, your own superconscious will come to the party, as always, and give you knowledge and information about it, and most importantly, experiences. You may very well, if you are committed to a path of personal growth, start to feel energies coming through you, through your spine, through your arms and legs, through your head, the top of the head, and you suddenly find one day that you and that tree are one single energetic organism. And then over there, you and the letterbox in your front garden is one single energy. And these are the kinds of things that you'll start to feel. They're accompanied by bliss, by the way. You might be a bit shocked in the beginning if they start to come to you, but that's what it is. So people who do not ask will never receive, because the clamps of the past are so strong on you, and you have to get the life force in your, mind's eye, so it can then respond. So let's look at the other piece of information. We'll show you how this radical and rapid transformation is taking place. It's the times we're living in. They are changing in massive and extraordinary ways. We've looked at this in previous sessions. We can see it very clearly by the advances in technology, our new friends, the robotics and the artificial intelligence. But perhaps most importantly of all is the reality that evolution, which is the word we use to describe the growth actions of the life intelligence, is stepping in. We are now in a phase of increasing evolution to take humanity to a new level of consciousness for a reason, as you'll see. So for thousands of years, the whole of the human race has been mainly in survival. That's been it. That's been the game. But now with the robots and artificial intelligence, they're creating a world which within a few decades will allow people to live with far more free time and security, as well as opportunities that have never ever been experienced before. And everyone, eventually, 2 or 3 decades, will have access to a life without the need to work. They'll live as they please. This is what they tell us is coming for us all. It's the only way it's going to work in society. 2 or 3 decades, though, before it comes to that. Many will be thrown off the lorry of life, thrown off the back, into a life of struggle and lack, particularly those who are unprepared or who are not following a path of proper personal development. It's crucial for you that you start to practice regularly this information that I've been giving you over these sessions. And if you can keep yourself going, follow the advice through this period, you'll have experiences of incredible opportunity and security. They believe that 10 years from now, a decade or a decade and a half, you will be able to extend your life, go to the doctors, extend your life to 100 to 120 years. That will be the norm. And they are promising that it will get even more than that. Life will extend beyond the believed limitation of 120 years. And this again is because our old friend, outer space. We have to live a long time. And this time is going to be called the transformation. So it's essential you understand what's happening fully and be able to communicate it to others, professionally, casually, whatever. Then everyone will know you're up to speed. If you understand what's going on, I'm giving you the outline here and what to do later on. If you understanding that's what's going on, then you will be a valuable person in your own life and in society as a whole, because this is the age we are entering into, the era of consciousness of the animating force of life. And why is this? Again, because of space travel. As humanity becomes an interplanetary species, the human body will need to awaken all sorts of powers and abilities to be able to handle these stresses and challenges of space travel, as well as mastering life extension for the long voyages into space. And it will not only be the physical needs that have to be upgraded, but also, most importantly, the energetic skills to stabilize the body so it can function normally in any environment, on Earth or traveling to the stars. As you've probably heard, when the astronauts go up, they have all sorts of problems. Gravity and the bones soften and all sorts of things. They're not sure how to deal with that. It'll be something to do with their energy system, quite obviously. And the other thing that's going to happen out of necessity is that when people start to discover how to awaken these higher energetic states, all sorts of amazing talents and abilities will come to the surface spontaneously. Genius levels of creativity, a piercing intelligence and perception will manifest in more and more individuals who access consciously the animating force. So let's concentrate on it, because it's the source of all the improvements in your life. It can give you the money that you need. It can make you attractive for your relationships, give you more concentration and a better memory, bring you to more fitness and health, as well as help release your creative powers, because it really is a magic wand. So what is it? What is this power? And you need to start thinking about it very, very carefully from now on. Number one, as we've said, it enlivens you. It's the electricity, as we mentioned, that gives life to a computer or a toaster or anything else. Now, what is important is that this animating force is filled with unexpressed powers and abilities which activate your physical body and mind, allowing you to live your life. So it's an invisible electrical force. We're using that as an analogy. It's not really electricity, but it is an invisible force that flows through you, but it contains information as well. It's not just raw electricity. It is the force of life, and as it flows through you, you can draw down from it all sorts of powers, qualities, abilities, characteristics, whatever it might be that you're interested in creating in your own life. So it's there flowing through you like DNA. DNA is filled with trillions of bits of information. In the same way, this invisible energy is filled with all sorts of things. And this is what the great yogis have examined and been able to manifest and do, and which you can do. At the moment, you're only using a fraction of it because that's all that was called forth from you during your upbringing, your education, and so on. Now, these powers at the moment are unconscious. Therefore, they're difficult to examine unless you're on a real personal development path. They run the practical realities of day-to-day living, growth, healing, digestion, all those things, of course, as well as the functions of your mind, feelings and emotions. Now, you have a mind within you, and every now and again, or if you close your eyes continually, streams and streams of thoughts and images flow and flood up into your consciousness. At night, they come as dreams. During the day, if you close your eyes or your mind is wandering, you are what? You are daydreaming, you are fantasizing, you are remembering things. Where do those things come from? Perhaps they have some source in the DNA, but there is also a collection of different things in the invisible force within you. And one of the things that it holds there, and this is the most important thing perhaps for you, is that it holds the wild, free, natural state of a human. At the moment, human beings are shackled, they're tied, they're restricted, they're held in, they're limited, they're full of resistance from their upbringing. And yet, the animal nature, even though it's been tamed and civilized because of contraction, it can be unlocked, released. In other words, all those primordial powers, these forces of life, still live within this animating force and can be brought back for you, for your conscious use, by the practices, meditation being the crux of it all. You see, your system is always craving the exhilaration of being fully alive. It's a craving. People, go into battle and they feel it, or an adventure sport, or a crisis, life and death situation. These faculties are still within you, but they are sitting latent, unused, giving you a dissatisfied life. You will only have a satisfied life if you become fully alive, quite obviously, and that's why people do bungee jumping and all those sorts of things. But the truth of the matter is that the animating force, which is fully within you, is filled to the brim of everything, because it's connected to the whole universe, and this is what is called the self, the higher self. So the animating force is the expression of the higher self, just like your hands and feet and head are an expression of your body. So your system is craving the exhilaration of being fully alive. So you have, up till this point, substituted those innate cravings within you into things in the outside world. They will never fulfill you. They can be fun, they can be pleasurable, enjoy yourself, that's fine. But most people believe that those drives are in fact the way to fulfillment. They're not. They're the way to temporary pleasure. If you want fulfillment, you must go back and merge with this animating force, which is through every fiber of your being. And so remember this, whenever you want something, a relationship, money, a nice house, car, whatever it might be, what is underneath that, what you're really craving, is the free, natural, fully alive state. And if you can bring yourself back to that again and again and again, number one, you will open up more of it. And number two, because you've opened up more of it, you will be able to create what it is that you want in your life. The two go hand in hand. Because quite clearly, your whole life is a result of the functioning of your energy system. If you've got a lot of energy, you're naturally motivated to create your life in the way that you want it to be. If your energy is limited, or you run out of energy, then your life becomes flat, or a hassle, or a problem. So only the free, natural state of full aliveness, unrestricted, unhindered, all-powerful, ecstatic, and immortal, only this will satisfy you, which is why the religions have sold immortality to you. This energy itself, this animating force, is immortal. It doesn't die. It keeps everything alive, but it itself doesn't die. And this is why the great beings in all cultures have tried to merge with that, develop techniques to merge with that, so they can experience what is that idea of immortality as well. It said the great yogis say there are secret chambers within the brain, and these wake up over time with the proper practices, meditation, yogic kinds of things, and they will awaken the secret chambers in the brain. So you go for full aliveness. It's a state filled with energy, power, joy, humor, perception, natural motivation, inspiration, and a very strong will. You're in synchronicity with the whole of life when you are merging more and more with it, and you are a completely intuitive person. And what does that mean? It means you are in tune with and you are in touch with all sorts of functions that you never knew you had that can give you the so-called siddhis or extrasensory powers. And they in themselves are extraordinary. So prior to being fully alive, you feel less alive. And therefore, when you feel less alive, you feel unable to fulfill your potential. And the less alive you are, the less motivated you are, the less inspired you are, and the less power you have. And at any moment, or you can change your state and therefore change your experience. So full aliveness is the state where you are connected to the animating force. And eventually you leave behind identity with the body and the personal mind, and you identify with this animating force. This is where people have experiences of cosmic consciousness. You can read many of those up on the web if you want to. And many people crave natural motivation. This comes from an unrestricted animating force, quite obviously. And you know, when you feel good, your problems diminish, and when you feel bad, they seem insurmountable. So if you wish to free yourself of negativity and lack of confidence and lack of self-esteem, even if you turn yourself incrementally to the animating force, it will make a big difference. Number one, you'll feel better and better, and that's where ecstasy lives. A lot of people want to feel ecstatic. The animating force is ecstatic. So that's what you want to do that. So if you do this, you will become also a magnetic person who can attract what they want, have clarity, achieve their ideas in the fastest way, whether it's attracting a relationship, making money, obviously, experiencing the feeling of love and freedom, longing for more creativity within yourself, like a Leonardo da Vinci or a Beethoven. These are people who were in touch with it, these kinds of extreme geniuses. And your life is basically an attempt to get back to this, because you know you've got it at some level of your being, but you don't know what to do to get it. You don't even know what it is. Most people have no idea what it is. And what happens is that constantly this life force is trying to heal, harmonize, and balance you and throw off everything that keeps you from merging with the life force, which is your essential self. So without the true understanding of it, then people are lost. And this is why the world, as we know it today, is filled with people who are lost. They're depressed. They can't seem to work things out. Nothing satisfies them. They know they want to get going, but they don't know how to do it. And however successful they are, it doesn't matter. I mean, one of the richest men in Australia, I knew who he was, but they didn't say in the paper. He called out the top professor of psychology, of positive psychology from Cambridge University in the UK. And he said to him, I'll give you $100 million if you can remove my depression. He had about $1 billion. And that was worth it to him. But the professor couldn't do it because they were still in the intellectual level of it all. You've got to get into the raw power that you have within you. Nothing in the world will fulfill you. Realize that now. Do not go for something in the outside world that you believe will fulfill you when it quite obviously won't. It's fine to go for things in life. You should go for things in life. You need to go for things in life for your security, your pleasure, your development of skills, to be in relationship with other people. Yes, but the secret is to merge with the animating force then everything outside yourself will become better. This is what great artists do, musicians, sculptors, you know, pottery people, painters, and so on, that something is arising in them, something is urging, you know, inside them. They want to get out, and they work at their art, they work at their craft, they do it, they do it, they do it, and then one day it all clicks into place, and they feel terrific. And it does give them ecstatic feelings, I can guarantee you that. So this awakening to more consciousness, people say, become more conscious now. They should say, become more conscious of the animating force. That would be more helpful for people. And your own self is the animating force, so self-development is the growth. Development is the growth of your awareness to it. So start to sense it, start to feel it. If you just sit with your eyes closed, that's a very good start. And to become whole, which means to free up the animating force and merge with it, means that you can feel that power coursing through every cell of your being. And in the East, in India, they call this the Guru principle. That which takes you from darkness to light is what Guru means. It's not the person, it's an inner intelligence. So you can start it immediately. You don't need any special, specific kind of secrets apart from what I'm giving you here. You don't have to wait. You don't have to be ready. You just need to free yourself from your past and start to live in a more alive state. And then what you need to do is look to the traditional societies, the traditional civilized societies. They have extraordinary systems in their writings, which have been built up over the centuries, and they have many, many rare and amazing people who have got in touch with this animating force. And I was fortunate enough to study with a major one, and we will go over and see the Samadhi shrine where his guru was buried, where the man who taught him everything was buried. And this man in particular, his name was Nityananda, he died in the early 60s, and he had so much power out of him, pouring out of him, that he couldn't straighten his, he couldn't curl up his fingers. He could only hold them straight out, like that. And there was so much energy, thousands of people, I mean, 500,000 people came to his funeral, I read somewhere. So he had thousands and thousands of followers. And you can go and sit in his Samadhi shrine now, and you can feel the energy. It's still there. Whoa, it's amazing, amazing kind of things. I have a lot of those places in India where they have really codified this very, very well indeed. So what you're seeing with this, you'll see the DNA, stem cells, you see where they're editing DNA, the medical science, life extension we mentioned. There are all sorts of pockets of possibilities arising in humanity. Ideas are pouring into people's heads. Why are they coming up now, not 100 years ago? These ideas that we're living out now. Because the animating force itself is doing it. We are along for the ride. There is a greater intelligence within you. It is you, but you haven't merged with it yet. But there is a greater intelligence within you. And if you focus your life on merging with it, then you will have the best experience possible. Can you imagine just going for a walk in the forest, being at one with your animating force and being able to merge with a tree? Literally a tree or a plant or a flower. Feel yourself at one with these things. Or have incredible abilities of mind, extrasensory perceptions, where you can hear at a far, far distance, just like native people can do that. They can hear things a long, 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 long way away. Or you know what's coming. You're able to avoid danger, confront challenges and deal with them. This is what comes to you. And all you have to do is to fill your mind with this kind of thing, just like all the successful personal development authors and presenters. You can use the discovery of these, what we call superconscious explorers, these traditional peoples, Some of them are in our own culture, very few. Mostly they're in traditional cultures, and you can use this knowledge for a very, very successful life. You can become a healer if you want to. And you have within you a phenomenal gold mine of untapped energy, which when activated will transform your life to blissful levels of experience. If you want bliss, it's within you. Don't think you have to find it out there. It's within you now. It's just hidden in little pockets, tucked away by the conditioning that we've discussed in previous sessions. And you don't want to try and think your way to it. By all means, intellectually grasp the idea, but make sure you do the practice, which is a sensing, feeling end of the spectrum, not a thinking, rational end of the spectrum. And I'm not saying don't be rational. On the contrary, become very, very rational. Be very, very scientific in your approach to everything to save yourself going down a wrong path for years. And just separate it out. Your personal mind is considered to be thoughts, images, and feelings. Thoughts and images are actually the tips of the waves of an ocean of electrical charges, the energetic charges that play out as words and images and feelings. Your own self is the animating force, which activates all part of your mind. Now, what you have to watch out for, this is very interesting, is that people bury their free, wild nature. What does that mean? Well, Hal Stone, the great, he was a marvelous, a brilliant, and he is still alive, he's in his 90s now, and he was a brilliant clinical psychologist, a PhD, and he was telling us, I was interviewing him once, and he was telling us about a new age girl in her 20s, very hippie type, who'd come to him about a dream she'd had. Now, she was very much the peace and love and everybody's, you know, everything is beautiful and all that. And the dream she'd had is that she'd gone down into her basement, down some stairs from her upstairs where she lived. And in the basement, it was filled with wild animals, lions and tigers and what have you, all sound asleep. And she wondered what it was. Well, Hal could see clearly that it was the instinctual part of her nature. All the wild animals are your instincts. It was the instinctual part of her nature. And they were all down there sleeping, listening to New Age music, all the animals. So what she'd done with herself psychologically is that she'd buried all the instinctual parts of her nature, the ability to growl and take action and stand up for herself and all that sort of thing. She'd put aside those qualities, buried them in the basement of her mind, and was peace and love, huggy time with everybody. Not good. You want to embrace everything. You want to see, what qualities have I got? What am I holding down, perhaps, that is limiting me? I mean, everybody does that. Everybody has it. He told another story in that same interview of a priest, a minister of religion, who had come to him because he was getting a bit worried because he had a dream where he was having a shower and he was trying to wrestle a drunk penis the same height as him into the shower to cool it down. Now, very funny dream. But of course, that could have become a very serious problem, as you can imagine, particularly as we're seeing in the news, all these problems like that at the moment. So you have to realize that when you are merging with your power, then you are processing out all these things that you might be burying. Most people bury and hold down their power in those symbolic kind of dreamlike forms, but with the proper, steady, slow release, like the valve off the pressure cooker, that's how you integrate those things. You don't have to go and run wild and do mad things at all. You just allow the animating force to heal, harmonize, and balance your system. Now, here's the most vital point of all. As all the great sages told us, you'll never find that essential self, that primordial animating energy, if you're looking for it in the thoughts and images that flow through your personal mind space. That's where most people look. They do all sorts of visualizations, they do all sorts of yogic imaginings of chakra images and goodness knows what. They do a whole lot of things, but it's not going to work because it's like looking for thunder and lightning in a 9-volt battery. Yes, both have electricity, but it's a different kind of thing, because the crucial secret is that it does you. The animating force will do you in the sense of clearing you up, letting the steam off the pressure cooker if there is any need for that, not in everybody by any means. And then you start to feel the joy, the ecstasy, the bliss of this life force. And most people are like an ocean. They live at the surface of the ocean where the waves are, when the deep fullness of the ocean is who they really are. And that's who you really are. And what happens is with the waves, they're the involvements of everyday life, the little waves of thoughts and images and memories and feelings that stop you seeing into your depths and being able to access your true power. That's why the traditions say you must be still and look within. You must make your life accessing your internal, extraordinary, animating force. And how do you do that? Many ways. Yes, get intellectual understanding as you're getting here that tells you what's going on, how and where you need to aim. You can experience it, usually in the beginning, not directly, because there's so many waves of activities or the personal mind's monkey chatter, that kind of thing. So you just let yourself go within. And the easiest way, of course, is to observe internally. You can just sit down somewhere, and don't do this while you're driving, obviously, but sit down somewhere in your room, close your eyes if you like, or keep them open, and just observe the thoughts, the flows of thoughts and images as they come up. Most people never do this. Just start by doing that. What are these thoughts arising? Because there's a split of a second between each one. And between each thought is where this animating force can be accessed, that you can actually experience it. So that just requires a little practice. And it's basically, the mind is like electronic pulses that throb on and off at fantastic speed. And that's the same with the images and the pictures. They go through at really high speed. You see them as a flow, or you see the odd image, it comes and goes. So if you can catch that split-second space between the appearance and disappearance of everything internal, then what will happen is that that space will expand with practice, and you will be able to sense, maybe only for a second, but you'll be able to sense the animating force, and you will know what it is, because it will be different from what you normally experience in your everyday life. And it will feel more real to you, more interesting, joyful, more ecstatic. When you start to do it regularly, people will say to you, my goodness, have you been on holiday? You look terrific. Because now your attention is within and without at the same time. You've grasped, you've seen, you've experienced something very, very special there within you. You've opened the door to the primordial power, and one of the side effects, strangely enough, is that you can start to get what you want so much more easily. See, when you're out of touch with, or far away from the primordial power, so to speak, I mean, you can never be far away from it, but you know what I mean, that things don't work. You're out of sync. Just like a voice on a screen is, when the words are after the mouth moving and so on, out of sync. You don't want to be out of sync with life. People are out of sync with life because they're out of sync with their own animating force. That's what it actually is. So this is how you achieve, and it's been told for thousands of years, the enlightened state. And this gives you, it detoxifies your mind, it awakens all negative contractions. You experience stunning things, actually. You find that you can work and be creative without any you know, effort whatsoever. It's easy. I remember when I started writing, my goodness, was it hard. It was tough to stay concentrated and do it. Now I can sit here for 4 hours and write completely freely. And this is what will happen for you too. So you don't have to focus on dealing with negativity. This will come about, what they call the animating force, the fire of love, the incendium amoris, that starts to appear. If you want to be filled with love, focus on the animating force. Don't waste your time trying to find someone to love or get someone to love you. Become love. Then everything else falls into place. You see? That's how it works. That can be hard, of course, when somebody's filled with negativity who's in your company, but it's certainly a much better way to do. So if you're aiming your life for ecstasy, which I thoroughly recommend, and you do it by ways that are very well known, then what I suggest that you do is that you find yourself in a situation where you can access through practice this extraordinary nature that you have within you. And it's the formula for freedom. But the real key to it, and keep this in mind always, the best real key is to fill yourself, drench yourself with personal development, information and knowledge. Make that your life. This is what I do. For decades I've been doing this, and it's given me so many rewards. I drench myself, I infuse myself with this knowledge of the higher nature that we all have. There's nothing more interesting, but it's not only interesting, it makes things happen in my life, as I'm sure you found out yourself. If you've done any personal development, you're here because you're interested in personal development. If you fill yourself up with personal development, you will, because of the rule, whatever you focus on expands in your life, you will experience tremendous insights, incredible coincidences, things working for you, and most importantly, life speaking to you directly. This is what I find for me. Life, there is some intelligence out there, so to speak, also inside, but out there in life that I communicate with. I don't try to call it forward. It just happens in my everyday experience. Coincidences occur, extraordinary little things all the time, and sometimes very big things. So I recommend the path that I have followed, which is the path that I was taught by the greatest teachers of all, which is to fill my mind with personal development. I've read over 2,000 books on the subject. I find it fascinating, and it is just such a help to you. And if you can teach it as well, if you can communicate personal development, whether it's one-to-one with friends and family, whether it's with community groups where you give talks for free, or on the web like we're doing here with a webinar, if you can communicate it, you will clarify it in your own mind more and more and more and more and more. You don't have to do a lot of it. It can be a part-time casual thing that you do. But if you have this subject known, people will find you very, very interesting, very, very attractive to be with. And you will find yourself respected, becoming confident, and you get a lot of self-esteem out of it as well. It's really very, very good. Okay, so let's see now if anybody has any queries about anything that I've said or the course itself. Happy to answer both for you, but do keep in mind that things are radically changing. You've got to look after yourself. There are too many baby boomers. You need an extra skill, and this is one of the simplest skills that there are. Do you think taking ayahuasca helps people to awaken and see this animating force in themselves? I have heard that this is the case. Ayahuasca is a herbal medicine in usually South America. It's made of some vine juices, and people do experience things like that. But of course, you must be careful with drugs, particularly, not so much ayahuasca, but particularly the you know, the manufactured drugs. You've got to be careful of those. because you can, boil up the brain, obviously. So that's possible, definitely, Rowland. I've read articles about that. I'll show you all a picture now. Have a look at this. There you are. Who do you think that is? That's yours truly. As a young man, I was 19 there, and that girl I got my arm around is none other than Helen Mirren, the famous film star. I was working on a film with her up with James Mason up in the Barrier Reef. So I'm going to send that picture to her. I found it while I was unpacking. She's a beautiful woman. My God, what a classic. She's a fantastic person. How does the info you spoke about correspond to the Akashic records? Well, the Akashic records, for those who don't know, are meant to be the memory of the universe, of everything that's ever happened in the universe. So everything is remembered, apparently. And what we've talked about here is the intelligence that is behind everything. So it wouldn't have any, what we're teaching wouldn't have any effect on the Akashic records, but what it would do is probably give you, as you develop this skill, the ability to read or find an Akashic record. Danuta, my question is about feminine and masculine energies. How do these two relate to your teachings about subpersonalities and the animated life force? If the feminine and masculine, two different personalities, or are they something else? Well, with subpersonalities, Danuta, there is a range. Like you've got probably a dozen surface, what are called primary selves, at the surface of your mind, different behaviors for when you're talking to your parents or your own children or work or leisure or concentrating on the computer. You have different programs, subpersonalities step forward to that. And some of them, there are female and male within all human beings. Some of them quite, extreme. But in general, people tend to stick to their biology. And what's the question again? How do they relate to the teachings? Yeah, so the fuel or the driver of all subpersonalities is the animating force. And those works can help you a lot if you're examining the different subpersonalities, or all about the subpersonalities. There's a course called You and Your Life, and it's got a huge explanation of the subpersonalities. I hope that answers you enough. Thank you, Irina. Thank you, Luke. Could you indicate some natural ways to prevent a stroke? I once did, well, basically you've got to keep fit. You've got to clean out the arteries. And I've read a doctor saying that if you took a teaspoon of olive oil every day, that would help strip out the plaque from the arteries, because it's a blocked artery issue. And so it's the same answers for everybody. You keep as fit as you can, you get rid of your belly fat, and you don't overdo it. You can go and get ask your doctor to get a CAT scan, very mild radiation, a CAT scan of your heart to see if any of the arteries are blocked there. That would help you, and they can do it on the neck, I believe. So that's how you can see. And if the arteries aren't blocked, well, then you're pretty safe there. But you've got to really look after the body, particularly as you get older. I hope that helps. Okay, so off we go. And thanks very much for coming. I shall see you in the next one, whenever that might be. It won't be too long. But keep going, keep growing, keep planning for the future. Many shocks to come for people who aren't prepared. So make sure you read up and become very, very prepared indeed. So bye for now. All the best.